Okay, so Capricorn Ascendant, how are you? This is your forecast for the new season ahead. I'm actually recording this now on the 23rd. My goodness, I started recording this video about 4 or 5 days ago. It's taken quite a while to finish. This forecast is really for the next 3 months ahead to give you a real heads up as to how you might want to manage the energies, understand them, etc., etc. And there's 2 parts to this forecast. So the first part is really understanding what this new season is, and you'll see that I've kind of blocked out the seasons to describe them. I also, I've written that this is your fresh start. This is the season we're in right now. So the sun going into the sign of Cancer on the 20th of June started I'm going to call them zodiac month, not the calendar month, but the zodiac month of Cancer started. Then we'll have the zodiac month of Leo, and then the zodiac month of Virgo, which takes us to our next season. Now, I think, in the way that I always do it, I always think that where you've just come from helps to lay the groundwork for where you are right now. And so I also want to talk about, the previous one, which is spring if you're in the northern hemisphere, or autumn if you're in the southern hemisphere, because what was going on there was pretty intense. It's I think the busiest time of the year, to be honest. And during that time, so whichever season we're in, all the new moons are always in the signs of the seasons. And then all the full moons are always in the signs of I guess we could call it the anti-season, like the complete opposite season. So for instance, right now, all the new moons, in fact, I'll show you on this screen, all the new moons are on this side, and then all the full moons are on this side. I've also put in where Mercury retrograde is going to happen during this season. And so what occurs to me is, whilst we do go through a season, we also have the shadow side of it. And forgive me for saying that the full moon is like a shadow side. It's not really, but when energy gets too, I really believe in balance. In fact, the more I study astrology, the more I realize how important balance is. And of course, many of us in our birth charts have got a real sort of like heavy load here and something going on here. And in particular, people that watch this channel have had a hell of a lot of stuff in this area, which is probably what's brought them to this channel, because I've been talking a lot about what's happened at the earlier part of the year. And of course, their interest is going to be piqued. But anyway, during that time, when everything was really about Aries and Taurus and Gemini, the full moons, when they come in, they're pulling our attention back into the other patterns, the opposing patterns, because all of these polarities represent some kind of spectrum. And so, I mean, let's get started. I mean, I'll talk very much about what we've just done and where you are being rebalanced, and then how you're going to be tackling this season, and also where these rebalancing points are, but also the shadows. I also do want to talk about the ultimate gift and the ultimate opportunity as well. And in the second part, I will also touch on, these particular, the full moons in particular are pretty strong, and also these fabulous new moons offering us some opportunities. So let's get cracking. So leading up to this new season, which is here, and starting off like the emphasis into your 7th, 8th and 9th house, you are really experiencing the previous season from the 20th of March. Now, when the sun went into Aries, it was really highlighting your home area, and then moving on to creativity and joy, and then the results of what all that extra joy has brought, and how you might want to manage that. So it's almost like the 6th house is the house that brings us back into a very sort of physical balance. It's saying, hey, you can't, whoops, I don't know if you saw that. You can't, go into this deeply creative place without creating hassle for yourself and chaos, when your life kind of gets out of shape. And I really think the 6th house brings us back into shape. So, what you've been completing on, and this is really, really personal stuff, because it starts in the 4th house. And the 4th house is a time, I think, when particularly we want to hide away a little bit. It's a very psychic house. It's one where a lot of family patterns exist, and everything to do with belonging, and a lot of our behaviors and belief systems really come from this fourth house, because they're really laid down in our early childhood. So there's a lot going on here, and there is a really strong potential for us to let go of old stuff, as it comes up. You can get really, really busy. In fact, having the North Node and Chiron going through this part of your chart will have made it a very, very sensitive point. So most likely, March to April was pretty testing, especially seeing as it was going on at home, because it was really forcing you to correct imbalances in your life, where maybe you haven't been quite so focused on your home. Maybe you haven't been quite so focused on the balance of your home, especially given that Capricorn ascendants really have a very strong energy up towards the 10th house. The sign of Capricorn is the 10th sign. And so it really has this sort of understanding of the 10th house energy, which is being out there, being seen, progressing, taking that long, slow climb like a mountain goat, up the mountainside, almost like nothing's going to stop you, because you've already got your eyes on where you're going. And you just like take one step and another and another and another. And having Saturn coming into this side of your chart in recent times will have also slowed down that sort of feeling of ease, or where you belong. Saturn, really makes things a bit stodgy for a while. He tries to solidify things. So any attempts that you've had to feel a lot more stable in your natural environment is also pulling you back down from this top part of the chart. So yeah, April would have been a time when there was this very hard pull to get you out of your career, out of your big goals, and back into the home and back into this belonging, exactly where Saturn, your ruling planet, is kind of being down here as well. So yeah, that would have been very testing. And I always think that when we've had a good go in the home, often our creativity starts to come back. Once we get things a bit more organized, once we feel a bit more peace, the natural desire for joy comes back. The natural desire to express ourselves comes back. And the fifth house is full of that. It's also got romance. It's also got sensuality, children, all the things we're birthing, including all our projects. And so the fifth house can get quite busy, even though it's primarily a place where you are creating your joy. It's not necessarily involving other people, but you've had Uranus there, and also Jupiter was going through there, and then later went into the sign of Gemini. So there's been a lot of surprising extra activity going on for you in terms of what you're trying to create. And I suspect that as Jupiter has come into this sixth house, you're now really battling to get everything back under control and get your health back into, there's a lot of things going on, and a real need to kind of thin things out, actually, because after Jupiter comes here, he's going to go into your seventh, and he's going to start bringing really helpful people into your life. And so it would be very good if you could clear some space here and use Jupiter's energy to help you out in your health. Anyway, where you are right now. So the sun is in your seventh house. It's warming everything up in terms of your relationships, and it starts to feel more like the people in your life are determining your direction a little bit more. You can't quite make the decision on your own. It feels more like other people are more important. Their needs are being more beautifully articulated, so you almost can't ignore them. And actually, you're learning a little bit about maybe other aspects of yourself. I really think other people in your life are a projection screen for maybe what's not completely developed in you. And so you've got an opportunity here to consider other traits that maybe you do have, but that they can develop, and the people in your life, if you've picked great ones, they're going to help you tease those out, which I think is great. Now, of course, if you're coming out of yourself and experiencing, I always think this is a bit of a not self position, like the opposite. If you think your ascendant, this first house is very much about your personality, your image, your body, your brand. This is very much brand you, and this is like brand not you. And so, because a lot of energy is here at the time of the full moons, and there are 2 full moons. The first one's just happened last night, and so you might have caught my forecast about that, but the first full moon in Capricorn was yesterday, really close to your ascendant. And so that would be saying, hang on a second, whilst you're developing yourself in new ways, don't forget who you are. And the moon going through the first house is a time when we often feel deeply emotional. We really feel pulled back into ourselves because something emotional happens, something that really picks up on like an emotional value or an emotional slight. It really can pull you back, especially in the full moon position. And then, in this next month ahead, in this next, not calendar month, but in the next zodiac month of Cancer, you've also got the new moon on the 5th of July, which is really helping you to set some new scenes with the people in your life, maybe to learn something with somebody, to engage in activity with somebody. It's really helpful for you to connect more. And then, of course, you're being balanced back around the 21st of July with the second full moon in Capricorn, which just so happens to also be in a conjunction with Pluto. And so then it feels like the reins of who you are really pulling you tightly back. And in fact, you might start to feel a bit out of control, hence why the full moon in a conjunction with Pluto, you're going to be looking to regain control of who you are. Maybe it's a little bit too much. You've been around people a bit too much and it's a bit difficult. And then, the next part of this is, you're going into the zodiac month of Leo. Now, that's naturally an expressive time. And in your chart, it's really highlighting the 8th house, which I'd like to say is expressive, but actually I think it's quite a seething house. It's a house where you feel a lot, but you're not necessarily expressing it. And a bit like, the first house here is where you are, and then this is your money and your values. This is where everyone else is, and this is everyone else's money and values. And so the 8th house can get really quite mucky in terms of boundaries and what belongs to you, what belongs to everyone else. And so here it's a time when we often feel very, very judged, because every man and his dog has some idea about what you should be doing, how you should be doing things, where you're failing their expectations. And there's often some confusion about how you're managing money with people or resources, shared resources with other people in your life. So it can be particularly onerous, all sorts of things to do with your transformation, the ongoing cycle that you're in, all come up, like birth, death, dying, and all the different sort of incarnations in between. It all comes out. Now, it is a place of transformation. Obviously, it's like you're moving from one state to another, and it's very much about your rites of passage. So everything to do with aging comes up at that time as well, and it really brings into sharp focus all of those expectations that you've taken on, other people's stuff that they've put on you as to what you need to do. So this could be a time when you really free yourself from generational curses or generational temperaments and things like that. It really does put you in quite a spin if you allow it to. So I do think it's worth tightly managing this. And of course, this is where the full moon comes in. So first of all, we've got the new moon, which is kind of helpful. It's really shining a light into the inner psychology of your life, but also into the psychology of the lives of other people. In particular, the ones that you're maybe sharing your life with. It really gives you access to see more. And from that, you can really get a new start, maybe a better understanding of each other and better and clearer boundaries. It's an opportunity. However, on the 19th of August, the full moon in Aquarius is again saying, hang on, you've been considering all of these joint goals and values. You really want to work out what that means for you. This is the place where you value yourself and where you understand what your unique gift to the world is in many ways. And so this is really trying to boost you up. And you may well find around this time that you actually don't feel very buoyant. You might find that you feel quite stressed out. You might actually feel quite attacked, given that, the sun is in here in this very strong judgy place. And then the moon is down here where you're meant to have your own self-esteem. I really think the second house is a place where we're building self-esteem. And so leading up to this full moon in Aquarius, if I was in your shoes, I think I would maybe from the 14th, 15th, maybe spend a bit of time really understanding how important I am, how beautiful I am, what I've been learning. Because I think if you understand all of the stages of your life, in particular what you've been learning and how far you've come with that, you have some appreciation of the journey you've been on. You remember the struggles, and you also remember the successes. And it's very easy for us to learn things and then forget about them and then just think, oh, it's nothing. We go into that kind of fake humbleness, that almost feels like that's what's required in life. That sort of humility that, okay, I shouldn't have said fake. Maybe it's real. Maybe you are going into that place of humility, or maybe you're like closing down on the light that you are. Maybe you're not fully acknowledging yourself. So I think leading up to this, you might choose to have an acknowledgement fest of who you are, and so that this doesn't go off as a big judgment, horrific kind of drive-by of judgment. That'd be awful. So the next part of the season ahead, when you're going into the zodiac month of Virgo, that's really your natural time every year around the 22nd of August is when you naturally feel that need to kind of get out and experience life in a much more full and open and expansive way. So, for instance, you may well find that around this time of year you want to get away. Maybe you're one of these people that has a late holiday, rather than the holiday that is typical of this year. In the northern hemisphere, people tend to have their summer holidays. So you may well get that sort of impulse. No, now's the time I need to get away. Now's the time I need to learn something. And learning, the ninth house is all about learning and studying. So you might be thinking, well, to get freer about how I am from judgment, I want to learn some skills. I want to do some book reading. I want to go to some seminars. I'm going to be listening to podcasts. That's my favorite one. It's a time of altering and expanding on how you feel, and the expansion is taking you up to a new point. And in fact, the more expansion you can do during this stage to free yourself up from maybe some of the small-mindedness and the pettiness and the sort of pathology of the 8th house, the more you're expanding yourself in this part of the chart from the 22nd of August onwards, the more you're setting yourself up for this success cycle that starts on the 22nd of September. So it's good. It's really sort of almost, I think the 9th house is like a springboard to the 10th house. I find it really quite helpful. Now, during that time, there is a new moon in Virgo, and that is absolutely there to help you feel more expanded and help you see opportunities that can help you on your way. I think this new moon is very vital because, again, it's like a springboard giving you the necessary energy and inspiration because of the possibilities that you've been dealing with, so that, when you come to this elevated point up here at the 10th house, you're really ready for that opportunity. Then, the other big moon of that month, on the 18th of September, is actually the first eclipse of the second part of the eclipse season. So we had the eclipse season, March, April time of 2024. The second eclipse season starts September, October. So, it's coming in, and this one is a real, it's really highly emotional and highly distracting and quite deceptive, actually. This full moon eclipse in Pisces is in a pretty, not an exact, but it's in a very tight conjunction with Neptune. It's very, very close to Neptune. So the Neptune energy is definitely going to be imbibing in that full moon. So, there's stuff bringing you back into the earlier narratives that you grew up in, and really challenging your expanded nature. And it almost feels like, during this time, it's like the local people, the people that you're moving away from as you're expanding your mind, are really trying to maybe guilt you back in. I always think the full moon in Pisces really brings up a lot of those sort of unseen, slightly hidden guilts and shames you know, and it gives a hell of a lot of stuff to unpick. And here it's really coming from your local environment, your local community, your friends and people who maybe feel like they're losing you because you're expanding and coming out of their vibrational field. Something else to focus on as well. And this actually came in around the time of the new moon in Leo, on the 4th of August. Actually, Mercury was going retrograde. He went retrograde or started to move retrograde from the 4th of August at 4 degrees in the sign of Virgo, going back to 21 degrees of Leo. And he got there will get there on the 28th of August. Now, during that time, it's almost, you know, at some level, when you're in this 8th house, you know, the sun is here, but Mercury is zoomed off. And so whilst you're dealing with the psychology and psychopathy of the people around you and their insane sometimes, not mandates, but requirements, these are my needs. And, you know, if you were a good partner, or put in whatever word you want, if you were really doing what you were meant to be doing, you know, this would be happening. Whilst that's happening, Mercury's already in the 9th, and really your mind is thinking, how can I get free? How can I get free? How can I expand on this? How can I find the joy or the spirit or the real purpose of this discourse I've got with my partner, etc. And so Mercury is zipped off, but actually you're being brought back because the time, it's almost like you haven't experienced enough in that space. It's saying, hang on, don't move just yet, because there's some really core observations you're going to make. There's some really insightful pieces, and that if you stick around, and so like Mercury's coming back into the 8th house, Mercury is meant to be hearing some of these language patterns that people are using with you, and maybe language patterns and thinking patterns that you've had about the people around you. And so there's something in it. Don't rush off, but the natural time to sort of burst into that place of, okay, I'm done with this part of my life now. I'm really ready to move on. And that's the 22nd of August. So stay with it, even if it gets a bit yucky. You know, the 8th house can be really, really difficult. And yet there's a real gift there. Now, speaking of gifts, let's just go back, because, you know, in this first part of the year, you know, I was talking, oops, I've gone the wrong way. In this first part of the year, glad I spotted that. In the first part of the year, with the, you know, the spring if you're in the northern hemisphere, or the autumn if you're in the southern hemisphere, you know, your attentions were really very much in the home, and not in your career. And so it's like life was wanting you to explore what it's like to be a more stable person, a more supported person, and somebody who can really understand where their thinking has come from, you know. So it really brought a lot of, I would say, reflection and an opportunity to feel a lot more grounded. Now, you know, the North Node going through here is still going through here at the end of this year, and then it's going to change into the sign of Pisces. So you're still learning more about this. You are still on this trajectory to kind of come home to yourself. So what I would say, the gift of this season is you're getting more opportunities to recognize who you really are and where your anchoring point is. So if you think about it, you know, you've experienced, or you'll be experiencing your relationships so much so that you're coming into the value systems of other people and possibly feeling quite judged, and really having this sort of intense late July to, you know, mid-August. It's quite intense. You're going to be learning a lot about yourself, and then you're going to be learning about how you can free yourself and how you can liberate yourself and how you can kind of upgrade yourself and change your way of thinking. And all of this is information. This is all the learning that actually your North Node right now, or the North Node going through the 4th house, it's helping you get more anchored in yourself. It's creating a stronger core understanding of who you are. So that is the gift of this season, I think, noticing the changes and noticing how flexible you can be when, you know, when the chips are down, and then when, you know, like all of your strategies to find peace and comfort are informing, you know, you about yourself. And I think that's a really strong gift, and one that, you know, we never are fully aware of it until we get the other side of maybe why we needed to learn that. But I'm sure it will all become really apparent in due course. The last thing then is the opportunity. You know, the opportunity here, like Jupiter going into the 6th house, he's creating a lot of new strings in terms of your how you live, you know. So there's a lot of emphasis on all the things going on at home, you know, in terms of your work, your home, all of your routines, your health, your diet, your money, everything that you're managing. And, you know, Saturn ascendant people and also Saturn sun people are quite good at managing life, really quite responsible on the whole, unless there's something else going on in your chart to prevent that. But, you know, you do want to find that kind of responsibility. And, you know, Jupiter coming in here is going to show you some alternative ways and probably speed things up, and possibly give you a new way of actually doing your life. And maybe you're due for an overhaul. Maybe you're going to get some help in, so that, you know, actually Jupiter's expanding an area of it because something else has been taken on by somebody else. So there is some really big change going on. And I just think that, I know when Jupiter comes to here and here, in fact, Jupiter on his ascent up to here is really creating the kind of life for you whereby you can take your career up a notch, take your earnings up a notch, take everything up a notch. And I think it really starts here. So use this time here, use this opportunity to clear out of your diary as much as possible and find new, exciting ways to use this. Because there's likely to be a lot of extra things that you're dealing with during this time, and how you have your attitude towards it and managing it is going to really determine how much of these successful new ventures come in. I think use this to clear space for yourself, because there's a lot coming in, and it's going to need a lot of persistence and discernment as well. So there you go, Capricorn Ascendant. I hope that was helpful for you in navigating the season ahead. And of course, if I can be of any help, just give me a shout. Lots of love. Bye for now.